Well, hello again, everybody, and welcome to Aquarius Rising Africa. It's Magic Monday and double magic today. I am so grateful that, as usual, our beautiful Brice has joined Morné and myself from Esoteric Atlanta, and Stephanie Schapp and the only reason I'm looking is because it's long. Okay. Spiritual perspectives on the Great Awakening, which is really what you do. You give spiritual perspectives on the Great Awakening. So I'm really happy to have you with us on our Magic Monday with our beautiful Brice. And I know you guys do a lot of cool shows together as well. And yay, welcome to Aquarius Rising Africa. So good to have you two here today and discussing another controversial topic. I know we got some very interesting feedback last week.
Yes. And I've actually disabled my comments because of this. It's not going to stop us from exposing the truth.
You disabled your comments?
On my show. On my channel, on my channel, I actually disabled my comments on my videos because no one's as violent as the people coming from the church, and that's just not okay. They're crossing some lines at this point, and they're starting to threaten even people who are just commenting in support, and so that on my channel will not be tolerated. So the comments have been disabled for a minute on my channel, just because we want to keep people safe as we dig through this mucky water. And I know we've talked about this, Stephanie. There's so many different levels of waking up, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And this is the big one. This is the big one for a lot of people.
I did it. I was ingrained in the church, heavily ingrained in the church. And I reprogrammed myself out of that because it was very toxic. And once I started to see everything, I started to see the fine line of okay, who's not to say that, okay, we've been lied to about everything. So I then took it upon myself to start looking and see how much the church lied to me too. Yeah. I got myself out of it.
Yeah.
What did you discover? I mean, if we talk about, and I know you and I have also done a show together on your channel a couple of months back.
Yeah.
So we've had some discussions before as well, very interesting ones. And you've also just recently come out of quite a strict religious background.
Yeah.
If I could put it like that. So I'm interested if you can just maybe tell us quickly, well, not quick, just quickish, about that, and how has your transition been, from where you were to this really orthodox type Christian to where you are now, seeing things differently?
Well, as a kid, I grew up Catholic, but we weren't heavily ingrained in the Catholic Church because they were always asking my parents for money. So I wasn't always there, but at the same time, I had a relationship with Yahshua as a little tiny girl. I would talk to him, not even really knowing anything about him in this lifetime. So I already had that baseline relationship with Yahshua. And then when I got into probably my late teens, I pretty much ran away from home, and then I got indoctrinated in the Pentecostal church. Very drastic difference from the Catholic Church. And there was always that little tiny portion of me that said something is wrong here. But I kept going with the flow of it just because I'd rather take the chance to have my salvation than not to. But I always had pastors all up in my business all the time. Oh, are you living with a man? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? Oh, you're going to go to hell. Oh, you're not going to get raptured when the rapture comes and Jesus Christ comes to save his church because you're living in too much sin. And honestly, I've sheltered myself. I was not living in what we would call that much sin. I'm kind of a good girl compared to a lot of girls out there. I didn't do drugs. I didn't abuse alcohol. The most I did at that time was I was living with my son's father, and we had a child together. So I was trying to raise him. I was in a very toxic environment. So I couldn't actually get out anyways, even if I wanted to. It took a lot for me to actually get out of that situation. So I was already being manipulated at home, and never mind going to church and then being manipulated. So I continued that life path for a little bit until I, for the next, I would say 15 years or so. I'm in my mid 30s now. I had a friend who reads the tarot and does pendulum dowsing. Actually, she was my red pill. And I never sat there and told people who were card readers or anything, oh, you're damned to hell because you're divinating or anything like that. I just, in my head, I'm like, well, if it's wrong, God will show them. And I just remember one day driving, and I got so ticked off. I knew we were in these end days of what they call them. It's end of the world as we know it. And I slammed the wheel at the stop sign. I said, God, are you really going to send all these people to hell, even if they don't know you? And I remember hearing that voice say, what do you think? And I said, it doesn't make any sense, because my son, I love him. And no matter what he ever did, I would never send him to an eternal hell of flaming fire and brimstone. So then I said, I don't think you are. And God was like, no, like very loud and clear, because I do hear the spirit realm to some degree. So Cliff Notes version, I then started to hear God tell me, don't take communion. It's a satanic ritual. Then I started to hear God say, you're no longer going to church. And God is actually the one who pulled me out of the church and was the one who told me it was satanic. And that was before I even did my own research on it. So then I started to do all the research on it, and I'm like, oh my God, this is satanic. So then, anyways, I got into the divination because my friend was into it. And then it took off, and I'm like, I feel so free and liberated. I'm hearing from God and the angels and my spirit guides. And it's not just one God I'm hearing from. I'm hearing from a whole family of guides that are around me, protecting me and helping me and guiding me through this. And there's much more to this life. And so it was the most liberating thing. And there was times I remember picking up my tarot cards and going, if I'm sinning, please make me stop doing this. And that was my programming that would resurface, and then I would have to pull myself out of it. And I did it on my own, and it's the most liberating thing I've ever done in my life. So that's the short version of that.
Well, that's amazing. That really is amazing. And I must say, I've got a great admiration for that, because I think I'm the same. I can sit with 20 denominations around a table and have a conversation and embrace each and every one's denomination for what it is. It's not the denomination, it's the person and the programming, as you say, that goes along with that. So I'm just happy that we can do what we're doing, despite coming up against some really nasty people, but that's okay. We carry on doing it anyway. It just shows us a lot anyway. So we're going to be talking about the bloodline of Magdalene. And I know, Brice, you have got a very strong connection with the Magdalene. So I would love to hear what you have to say about our topic today. So over to you, beautiful lady.
I feel like my channel is now Magdalene's channel, because I have heard Mary Magdalene speak to me. Well, we know her as Mary Magdalene. Her real name is Magdalene. Her first name was not Mary. It was just Magdalene. The controllers want us to think that the name Magdalene comes from a town called Magdala. That is not true. She was not from Magdala. Her name was just simply, first name was Magdalene. She actually wants me to call her Maggie. And there's been other people who have a connection with her too, that had said the same thing. And we don't know each other, that she had asked to be called Maggie for short, to signify that Magdalene was actually her name. So I do refer to her as Magdalene on my channel, just so people know who I am referring to instead of Maggie. But Magdalene has been speaking to me since I was 16 years old. I'll never forget the first time she spoke to me. And she has been guiding me throughout my whole life. I feel she is such an incredible presence to be around. And as we said on the Dark Outpost last week, she made it very clear for me to tell people, especially those who are struggling through this transition to coming out of the satanic Christian church, which is what it is. It's satanic, that she will help you. You just have to call on her, and she has so much love for everybody. She knows that your mind has been scrambled. She understands the mind control of the nefarious ones that puppet all these religions, and she understands how painful that can be to untangle. You think about all these cults where we watch their people who their job is to deprogram people from cults. That's what's happening to us as well. As we leave the matrix, we have to deprogram. Okay. And for those that were the most intensely into their church, it's going to be a painful process to deprogram, but Magdalene will be with you the whole time. She loves you so much. And if you want her to be around you, she will come and envelop you in her love. And so I wanted to put that out there too, because she's a force to be reckoned with. She's a sassy little broad, and I like that about her. So she's very loquacious too. She's very talkative, which works well for all of us. So,
say hello. There's something to be said about that, Brice.
Yes, well-behaved women rarely make history. So I think I think she wore the pants in that relationship for sure. I think Yahshua was more of the fun-loving, easygoing, laid back, and Magdalene was more of the like, this is how we're gonna do it. This is what's gonna happen. You know, so
yes. So Yahshua's guiding me. It's just like all light and love, all light and love. I'm like, am I gonna get any discipline here? No.
Magdalene's like, bye, Felicia. She's like the more she's more of the warrior of the two of them, but that's okay because her story has been completely manipulated. I mean, no one got the word raw. She wins the prize for having her story completely manipulated at the most out of the Bible, right? So I think she has a right to be a little bit upset. And in her gospel, she does talk about the wisdom of the wrathful anger, being able to understand what anger is, and as you say, Shanti, transmute it to be a force for change. Not to project anger back out, but to take that, settle into it, and make a change. And I want to say too, I know that when people have the propensity to lash out, it's because deep down there's something that we're saying that is actually true. And that's why that reaction is happening. And so I'm going to tell you guys, just like with the Moses stuff, we're not making this up. You can research everything for yourself. That's all we did. We just researched and we found the information. Ask and you shall receive, seek and you shall find, knock and the door shall be opened unto you. And my question too is, if you're more upset about the fact that the Bible is satanic, it follows the bloodline of the banking family, we'll say that's the bloodline it's following, is the banking family. And it's all full of a genocidal God who is only satiated through blood rituals. So hello, wake up. If that is what's upsetting you the most, that is fake, then maybe your faith is in an organization and not in an actual creator. Because for me, and I think I could probably speak for all of us, my connection to source creator has always trumped anything else in the earthly realm. Mm-hmm. So even though this stuff is shocking, when I first fell upon it, it did not disrupt my relationship with source. I've never feared God. God never scared me. I was never afraid of God. I felt nothing. Even when I was at my worst, I felt nothing but abundant love from God. So I want you guys to just question that for yourself. Why is it making you that mad? Is it because the facade of the organization is crumbling and your faith was in that? Is that why it's making you mad? Because if not, I'm going to tell you the real God, the true creator. Oh, he's so much better than Lucifer. That love is just so unconditional, and it goes beyond a book. It goes beyond any book.
There's a motherly love to it too. It's not just the father God, it's a mother God too. So you can embrace both of those aspects too. Because I always used to think, so where's the female part of this whole thing? Not because I'm a female or anything, but
balance.
A nurturer is the mother. You know what I mean? And so when I started to read books like the Sophia Code and the Return of the Divine Sophia and stuff like that, it really started to bring in that motherly aspect of God that I really longed for. And now that I'm out of that and I'm researching this whole, the Mother Sophia aspect of God, there's no words to even describe the real God. There's no words at all.
Yeah.
The real God loves us and shows us that love.
Yeah.
I'd just like to say, in terms of what you're saying, the whole masculine, feminine aspect of the creator, because yes, I do believe that God as a patriarchal energy, if you will, was created by masculine forces. But I want to also just say, before the patriarchal age came into existence, was the matriarchal age.
Mhm.
And let me tell you, the girls were not nice. We didn't play pretty. But that's a story for another day. And we can actually go into that because I've actually looked at that quite strongly and intensively over the years. But when we let's look at the whole masculine, feminine energy, absolutely. And we know that God is not a man, because a man can't create, he can't give birth. But what a male does is it's the seed thought. So let's think of the way that a male and female create. So it's the seed from the male. So the male has the thought. So the thoughts, it was the thought that was created. So the thought or the desire for something to be created occurred. And then when we look at nature, which is what we call Mother Nature, nature is God in action for us human beings. So when we look at nature, we see the feminine aspect of God in action. So the birthing, the birthing of baby animals, the creation of flowers and plants and trees and, all of that stuff. So we see the creative aspect right here in front of us. I always say nature is God in action, and we as a human species, we kind of like, and I mean, there was always this meme going around on Facebook, which is so appropriate. We as a species.
Sorry, hold on a second. Sorry, my computer was doing something funky there. Sorry about that. All right, I got it. Sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to end off by saying that it's like we as a species are really basically dumb because we worship an invisible God, yet we destroy the very nature that is God in action. So when we see through nature how God works and how aligned we actually are with nature, doesn't mean we worship nature, okay? It means we absolutely respect and appreciate and honor how nature works because we understand we as human beings are exactly the same in a different shape and form. So it's really a beautiful way, when we look at nature and we start understanding the beauty of nature and the power of nature, we see how the feminine aspect is in action. And remember, our bodies consist of between 70 to 80% of water, and how much water is contained on the earth. So, it's the same thing, and it's the emotional aspect.
Yeah, it's the Shiva and the Shakti. You can't have Shiva and Shakti without each other. The Shakti is the expression of the Shiva. It's the body, the nature is the soul expressing itself. And I'm sorry, my computer just totally freaked. It's interesting. I actually believe some of these comments are probably bots, to be honest with you guys, because right when we started, all of a sudden I started having these notifications popping up on a old video with a bunch of Christians leaving some threats.
Oh my goodness.
So I went to go disable it and my computer did something funky. So I think we're definitely on the right track. We're probably over the target. I will say that I shared the email with Stephanie. I got an email a few days ago from a person who stayed anonymous. It was an untraceable email. And this person was letting Stephanie and me know, I forwarded it to Stephanie, that we were on the right track, that we were getting it right. And the person did not leave their name. And they said that there was more, that they wouldn't say anything else. I don't know who this person was, but I got goosebumps when I was reading this email, because I'm telling you guys, Magdalene is guiding me through this. And I really think that she wants there needs to be a balance now, right, between the masculine and the feminine. There needs to be, we need to get the matrix needs to crumble. And so I just really hope that, and I want to say too, like for people that react in such violence because what they believe in has been challenged, that tells me too that you're really hurting inside, that there is some pain inside of you that is really a wound inside of you that is bad. And I just hope that you understand that that wound can be healed. It can be healed. You don't have to stay in an abusive cult. God loves you. He's not going to send you to hell, right? Because you had sex out of wedlock, or because you broke some man-made law, because you didn't tithe enough. Like it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Yeah. Okay. So I just want, I mean, anybody that's hurting right now, and that's why they're acting out, I do want you to know that this is, there is healing for you. And sometimes we have to have that tower moment. Sometimes we have to have that pain in order to make it change, in order to find the truth. And so I just want to put that out there. But this is actually this is one of my favorite topics so far. And Stephanie's right. We were doing all these grimoires, and then all of a sudden, Magdalene said to me, do a deep dive into the Merovingians. And I was like, why? I knew a little bit about the Merovingians from school, but what we need to understand is that all of our schooling from kindergarten, middle school, high school, universities, colleges, it's all a form of spell casting. It's all a form of black magic. Okay. And this is coming down to what we have now understood to be a timeline war. All right. Our planet at this point is third density, and it has to now go to fourth density. Now in third density, it's polarized. All third density planets are both dark and light. But when it evolves into fourth density, when it ascends into fourth density, it can either ascend into a fourth density negative or a fourth density positive. The law of one calls it service to self or service to others. Positive is service to others. Now the probability, according to a lot of scriptures, the probability of us going positive is really high. Okay, but it's still just a probability. And this is the war that we're in right now, guys. This is why it's vitally important that we understand, as Napoleon said, the Tartaria videos say, history is a set of lies agreed upon. And so this Merovingian deep dive is also going to feed into the Tartaria topics as well. Okay. And so if we keep believing the bullshit that we were taught in school, because they understand how the dark players understand how our consciousness works. All right. If we believe something in our mind, it comes true. Now, if we collectively believe something, it's most definitely going to go in that direction, because everything is based off of free will and consent. So if we keep holding on to what we were taught in school, the lie that we were taught in school, we're going to go negative. They still want to hijack the timeline, guys. We still have free will, even though it's a prophecy that the probability of us going positive is great. We still have free will to turn the ship negative, okay, collectively. And so this is why it's vitally, vitally important. We don't have all the answers, but we just need to understand that what they're telling us is bullshit. And I said this with Shanti, especially with past life readings. Now, Shanti's amazing because she did a past life reading with me, and she never told me what to think. She never told me where I was. She never told me the story. I told her my memory. If you are going to a past life reader who is telling you where you were, who you were, all that kind of stuff, be very, very wary of that. Okay? Because that's trying to get you to emotionally attach to something that probably didn't happen and we know there's a lot of infiltrators. I'm just going to put that out, that guy. I want to know everything about my past lives too, but let's just be smart about this, because this is a war, right? And you can tap into your Akashic records are in your DNA. You can tap into that if you want to. Okay. So anyway, let's get into who the Merovingians were. So what we are told, I'm going to first briefly talk about what we are told in our history books in the lie about the Merovingians, because there has to be some truth. They always have to have a little bit of truth in there, right? So if people recognize that name, we are told that they were a ruling family of the Franks, or what we call France, from the middle of the 5th century until about 751. Okay, so 5th century, that's the Dark Ages. which is also not the Dark Ages. It's Tartaria, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So let's
I was about to say, it doesn't sound very, I mean, it doesn't, I mean, we've been led to believe that's the Dark Ages, but was it really dark? I mean, wow.
Let's think about this. I love how on the big documentary about Tartaria, he goes, yeah, right. Yeah, right. Like, let's think about this for a moment. Let's just back up a little bit. And yeah, we're going to have some yeah, right moments. Okay. So they tell us, that the Library of Alexandria in Egypt fell in the 400s, I think it was, it fell. At this point, they tell us, controllers in our history books tell us at that point, humanity was super advanced. We were at the Alexandria Library. We were studying mathematics, geometry, all this stuff. We were learning about the stars. And then all of a sudden, Alexandria is like done. And then like 100 years later, we can't read or write. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Like how did we believe this? Like, shit's not adding up. No, they tell us it's the dark. So they're saying, oh, we don't have much information on the Dark Ages because people all of a sudden couldn't read or write. No, guys, it doesn't happen that way. People don't lose the ability to teach their children how to read or write within one generation. It just doesn't happen that way. Okay. So they tell us it's the Dark Ages and they don't have much information because they know for sure that there was 1,000 years here of Tartaria, which was the Golden Age, which was the age of peace. Okay. And this is when the Merovingians ruled. All right. Something interesting that even the history books will tell you about the Merovingians. They were a ruling family, unlike any other ruling family, because they did not believe that they were better than anyone else. They did not believe that they were more sacred or more holy than the people they governed. Now, I think I sent you, Morné, a picture of one of King James's quotes, which is very different from the rulers of this neat little controlling group that we're now a part of. So King James, who is given credit for the satanic King James Bible, the state of the monarchy is the supremest thing upon earth. For kings are not only God's lieutenants upon the earth and sit upon God's thrones, but even by God himself, they are called gods. So this is what
gods
we hear
with
about.
a capital G. I love gods with a capital G, if you please.
Yeah.
I mean,
wow.
this dude, right? But he wasn't the only one. They all felt like that they had divine right, that they were divinely better than everyone else.
And he's the one that wrote the most cherished Bible.
I know.
Out of all the Bibles.
The King James, right?
Yeah.
So they believed that but the Merovingians, however, did not. The Merovingians saw themselves as being very, very equal to their people. They cared about their people. I mean, riddle me that. Like, how amazing would it be to have a leader that actually cared about his or her people, right? We don't see that anymore. Yeah. Okay. So now they say that it started from a man named King Merovich. And they also, another thing about the Merovingians is they never cut their hair. Now, this is something I've recently been kind of looking into myself, because it's been coming up in a lot of these off-worlder back channels, where like a lot of our off-worlders that are channeled are saying that our hair is actually an antenna, that there's a lot of spirituality to hair. We see this with the Rastafarians as well. So they knew that there was something about, now the Kiwis of New Zealand, there's a story, I think it was the Cassiopeans that brought this up. The Kiwis of New Zealand were really great at navigating the ocean. They were great sailors. And then eventually they had their hair cut off and they lost their ability to navigate the ocean. So there's something there with the hair that we are not, it's an antenna. And so the Merovingians knew this. Now, a lot of their grave sites are still in what we call France today, which I'll say that's why we call it France today. I don't think this is where they actually ruled, which we're going to get into, but we do know between Tartaria and Gog and Magog, where we are now with the mud flood, the controllers moved some stuff around to confuse us, to get us on a negative timeline. So I do believe that some of their graves have been moved. Now there is, on their graves, they found a lot of these. Now it's very common for families to have like a family crest, to have an emblem. And their emblem, their crest was a bee, a golden bee. I think I sent you a ring or a picture of a ring or something that was from the Merovingians, or the cicada. Now, the cicada is a huge, huge insect here down in the state of Georgia where I live, which is going to be important. I know that they're everywhere, but they're big down here. It's like the soundtrack of the South. Is this the sound of the cicada? And I was telling Stephanie, I kind of like when I hear cicadas, it makes me kind of get a little nauseated because of sense memory. It's usually when it's really hot outside and uncomfortably hot outside that you'll hear the cicadas. So that's when I hear them, I just think of being really, really hot. But they're big down here in the South. Now, the cicada, or the bumblebee, and the cicada were they symbolize immortality and resurrection, and they come from Egypt. They come from Egypt, from the lineage of the priestesshood and priesthood of Isis and Osiris, which we know was how the real Yahshua and the real Magdalene was raised. They were not Jewish. They were raised in this Egyptian. We talked about this last week. Invert everything. If you go, again, guys, research the Ankh Moses tablet. The Ankh Moses tablet tells you the true story. They hid that sucker away in the basement of the Cairo Museum very quickly, that it was the Egyptians who had the one source creator. And it was the Jewish people at that time, the Canaanites, the Israelites, who worshiped the Elohim, Yahweh, who is Baal. Okay, so you have to invert everything. Again, Moses means master magician. Okay, so Stephanie, you had, oh, and also just so you guys know, when Napoleon, whether Napoleon was a real person or not, we don't know now. When he took over France, he had the Merovingian bumblebee put on his regalia because he was going up against the House of Bourbon. Now, the House of Bourbon is the Paysor family today, who's at the tippy top of the pyramid. And so he claimed the Merovingian as the proper dynasty over the Bourbon. So that's just interesting. If you look at pictures of Napoleon, you'll see the bumblebee on his regalia. Now, Stephanie, you told me something very interesting about bumblebees and cicada.
Yeah. So I learned this from a friend of mine, looked into it, but so beekeepers often live a very healthy and long life. And the reason being is they're around bumblebees all the time. The bumblebees are on them, they fly over them. The reason being is bumblebees are so high vibrational, they actually heal the person who is handling them if they're going through anything emotionally, physically. So they're a very, very high frequency being. And so it makes sense that they would choose the bumblebee because of the high frequency and the healing properties. And you think of honey, honey never goes bad. And honey is an antibiotic, it's an antiviral. And you can put it on a wound and it will get rid of any infection on a wound. So, I mean, honey is so healing, and it's such a high vibrational food, or it's a high vibrational supplement. So it makes a lot of sense that they would take the bumblebee and use it as an emblem.
Yeah. It just shows you what their intention was too, right? To make the bumblebee kind of their mascot is to help people.
Yeah. Raise their nature's medbed.
Yeah, pretty much.
And it's also fascinating. The bumblebee doesn't fly. It almost levitates. Like scientifically, it's like it's not supposed to fly, how it's built and shaped, but yet it does. So I love bumblebees.
So this is a sign. So we know that the Merovingians we know the word Merovingian means bloodline of Magdalene. Okay, that's what Merovingian means. We know that they have ties to Egypt through the bumblebee, which is where Magdalene and Yahshua were really from. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more. Now, we have been told that the Holy Grail was a chalice that was used at the Last Supper, Passover, with the person they called Jesus. Yahshua was the real Christ. And I think I sent you a picture of the chalices and what they actually, what the actual ritual. So Passover, guys, is a blood ritual. It's what it is. It's a blood ritual. What does that spell? That spells Yahweh. Who is Yahweh? Yahweh is Baal. Okay, so if you research into the 4 cups of Passover, you're deeply into it. You're going to find this is an absolute blood ritual in dedication to Lucifer, to the Lucies.
Wow. Look at that.
And in one of the other books that we're studying, there was no Passover dinner with Yahshua because Yahshua was never crucified, which we're going to get into. And he wasn't Jewish. Doesn't mean he didn't have Jewish students. It's nothing against. And I want to make that very, very clear, guys. The 99% of us on this earth that are trying to be controlled, we're each other's brothers and sisters. These controllers created different religions, which we're going to get into in the Tartaria series, to divide us. Yeah. This is not about the Jewish faith. Okay. We love our Jewish brothers and sisters. You guys have been manipulated just like we have. We've all been manipulated. We've all been lied to. We're just trying to find the truth. And all of us, whether you're Christian, Jewish, Muslim, Hindu, atheist, Buddhist, whatever, we all equally have the same love from Source Creator and from Yahshua, and for all equally. There's not one group of people that Source Creator loves more than anybody else. Why do they call the Jewish people the chosen people in the Bible? Well, who's the banking family? Hello.
Mm-hmm.
Who's the banking family?
I've never made that connection before. I've actually never sort of connected that dot, but it makes a lot of sense because who was one of the guests the other day on the channel who said, Tom Althouse, actually, and he was speaking about that as well. And he said, that's absolute BS. That's part of their narrative that they've pushed as dividing and conquering. That they because if you look at it as well, the Nazis also believed they were the chosen ones, right?
Yep.
And if you look at all those upper echelon bloodlines, hello, where do they all link to?
Moses. We're going to get into that when we get into King Arthur and Knights of the Round Table, because this story gets some wild twists and turns, guys. And the reason why they wanted to put sorry, go ahead, Morné.
Yeah, I just wanted to say the whole story about chosen ones, God's favorite people. I could never understand it, even as a young boy, because I knew God. I was speaking of God before I even knew there was a God. But how could people even for one moment believe that an all-loving God who created all of us can have a favorite? It's like ridiculous. It's like, in the family unit, mom just loves this one is his favorite boy. It's ridiculous. God doesn't work like that.
No. And they started this whole discussion so that we would shy away from showing the inconsistencies in the Jewish faith for fear of being called names. When we're not, I mean, like I said, this is not about the 99% of people who have been duped. This is about calling out the banking family, which I don't even think we can say their name on YouTube at this point because they're the sacred ones, right? And again, the bloodline, the Bible of the bloodline is that's their family bloodline. Right.
Can I interject for 2 seconds, Brice, too? So for those who are having a hard time following along with this whole Yahshua wasn't crucified and all that kind of stuff, do homework and go look up the story of Mithra. Because it is an identical story to your Jesus.
I was going to say this off camera, but Magdaline wants us to talk about that next week.
Okay, cool.
Are you guys cool with that next week?
For sure.
Yeah, I was going to ask off camera, but you brought that up. Yeah, she wants us to break that down next week so the Christians can see even more how they've been duped into going to a church.
That was the icing on the cake for me leaving the church, was that, because I remember, Brice, you kept bringing it up on your channel. I'm like, what is she talking about? So I remember coming on your show, and I won't go into details if we're going to talk, if you're going to talk about it next week, but I went and did my research and I actually did a whole show on it. And then I went on the Dark Outpost and then I talked about it because it's mind blowing. That was the icing on the cake. That's when I'm like, nope, done. I'm done with this. I'm done.
Yeah. Once you get into the grips of Mithraism in your research, you will never go back to a church. You will see it for what it is. It is Luciferian. It is satanic. Everything you're doing in that church is Mithraism. You can't unsee it. Once you see it, you can't unsee it.
And the symbolism of Mithraism with the Vatican. We'll go into that. Yeah,
it's once you see it, you can't unsee it. You have no choice but to see. You either have to accept that you're Mithraic or you walk away and rebuild your healing. Okay. All right. So if the Holy Grail is not the chalice, obviously it's not the chalice. that Joshua drank from at the Last Supper, because the Last Supper never happened. Okay. Again, communion is satanic. It's cannibalism. Then what is the chalice? What is the Holy Grail? Well, chalice is a Mesopotamian word that means nectar of supreme excellence. Or, this is really going to upset people, but let's do it. Let's rip that Band-Aid off. Or the Ankh.
I have mine on.
My symbol.
That's the Holy Grail. That's the Ankh.
Of course it is.
Why is this? Okay, so if chalice is the nectar of supreme excellence, or the Ankh, this is the womb of Atlantis. I think, yep, I sent you a picture, Morné, of this is the womb. So they even say here, while the cross symbolizes death, the Ankh symbolizes life. Lucifer is the god of death. Source creator, the real God, is the God of life. And where does life?
Go on. No, go on.
I'll say, where does life start?
Life starts in the womb.
Ooh, yeah, exactly.
And it's also a portal. The woman's a portal.
And it looks like a cup as well.
It looks like a cup. Yeah, the womb also works. You know, the woman's womb looks like it. So you can find all of this. Yeah. So you see here, this is the total woman's reproductive organs. All right. So how does this nectar of supreme excellence, which is the nectar of life in the womb, how does this relate back to Magdalene? Magdalene carried the O negative blood. Shanti, we both are O negative. That's the bloodline of Atlantis.
Yep.
So when we know that the Atlanteans, they had their issues, they had their problems. We know this. We know that they were a magical people. Now, and I've said this many times before, so nobody get upset about this. You can be O positive, and be missed. There are a lot of people who are rhesus positive, not O negative, that are super mystical and are super psychic. But as a whole, people who are O negative tend to be extremely gifted when it comes to connecting with the other side of the veil, with clairvoyance, clairaudience, psychic abilities. Now we know what happened with, what is the royal family's favorite bloodline?
Negative.
O negative.
They've been trying to hijack it.
They've been trying to hijack the O, which is the Holy Grail. It's the real bloodline of the Atlanteans that we'll say the Draco, these lizard people, the Lizzies, that they want to hijack. Okay. Now the O negative can support, like you can. So if I had a baby with someone who was O negative or A negative, my baby could be a negative as well, depending on the way that genetics works. So let's back up a little bit. If the Merovingian dynasty were the descendants of Magdalene and Joshua, they showed you with the bee, as an orb went by me, they showed you with the bee that they wanted to heal people. They felt it was their duty to help serve. Imagine that, having a political leader that truly wants to serve his people. Imagine that. I don't think any of us have ever lived in a country where our political leaders actually want to serve their people and make their people's lives better. It's like the Merovingians took it as their responsibility, because they were the carriers of the Atlantean bloodline, to make sure that the people of the earth were taken care of. When we get into Tartaria, we're going to talk about all the different healing facilities used in Tartaria. All right. And this is because they knew that these infiltrators were trying to infiltrate what was already here on this earth. So I hope that makes sense. All right. Is there anything else you guys want to say about the Ankh before we move forward?
Yeah, I was just about to ask you, because there's actually a few different meanings of the Ankh. Morné, do you mind bringing up that picture again? Because I actually did a whole video on the Ankh, because I was curious. I'm like, what is this symbol? What is it? You know, we go down these little rabbit holes. And I did a whole video because been some misinterpretation of it. Now, we talked about the female aspect of it. So there's a few different meanings. So we, Christians wear the regular cross. Now, the difference is you have this loop on the top. And what they did is the controllers took the loop off the top because the loop is God connecting to us as the human being. So when you have just the regular cross, you'd have a disconnect between you and God. And that's what that symbolizes. It doesn't symbolize the crucifixion. It symbolizes being cut off from God, making it look like it's actually a connection to God. The other thing too is it also symbolizes, and sorry to get a little graphic here, it also symbolizes the male in the woman too, as in the reproduction, as in life. And then if you look at down at the bottom on that picture, the alpha and the omega, the masculine Christ and the feminine Christ. And it talks about the alpha and the omega in the Bible too. And we do know that there are these little itty bits of pieces that are still true from the Bible. So those are kind of the other parts of the Ankh that like what their meanings are. So there's multiple meanings of this, but overall, the Ankh symbolizes life and connection to Source, God, universe. So
I would just like to say something about that because the Ankh has been my symbol for many years. I remember the first time I was 12 years old and I was reading, my mother had this library of books and I was reading one of my mother's books on Egypt and I came across the Ankh and I'll never forget it. I was just staring at it and something in me activated. Mm-hmm. Years later, I was in Namibia and I'm going back to probably early 2000s, around 2004, 2003, 2004. And I was meditating. And in my meditation, the next thing, this cross comes bouncing towards me. And I was like, what the heck? And as it reaches in front of my face, in a flash of gold, it transforms into the Ankh. And in that moment, God spoke to me and said to me, the symbol of the cross represents suffering. So when you look at this, it's the Christian symbol of suffering, of Jesus hanging on the cross. And it wasn't just Jesus in those days, let's say, that was crucified. That was a normal way of punishment. They might not have done the whole nails thing, but these guys were punished by being crucified, okay? So it symbolizes suffering. The Ankh symbolizes the transformation of the human consciousness. So the circle is your head, the horizontal bars are your arms, and the vertical bar is your body, okay? So it's the resurrection because it symbolizes resurrection, transformation, and protection. So it would be, now when you look at the human aura, it's the Ankh. Mm-hmm. And every human being has an electromagnetic field around 3.5 meters shaped like the Ankh because that's what we look like. So it's your protection. You can see it as an angel. That is your protection. It holds every vibration, every frequency, every moment you've ever lived. It vibrates within the frequency of the Ankh. So it's also the key of life. It's the Egyptian symbol of the key of life. And that's exactly why it is the Holy Grail, because it unlocks. And not just that, I mean, I've got a whole thing on my website about it, like literally working at cellular level, unlocking what is within you. So it's the symbol of unlocking the spirit that resides within. And when we are ready to receive spirit that resides within, you can imagine all your little cells are like little locked up cupboards. And when you are ready for and we're going to talk about it, yes, your Kundalini activation, okay, we unlock with the Ankh, and then that activates the cells in the body. It sends that whole Kundalini up the spine into the neurons in the brain and reactivates the cells in the body, basically in a very fast nutshell. But the Ankh is symbolic of unlocking certain portals, unlocking when you are ready. And I have I've had 2 people, I'll show you the next time, that have carved me the most incredible symbols. My brother, I don't know if you saw, he did I did an interview with him yesterday or the day before. He's made me an 8-centimeter, and he lives in Australia, Ankh, that I will. It's amazing. It's just the most beautiful, beautiful, beautiful symbol. So it is very powerful. And also what I want to say to people as well, and the reason why, because remember, everything has a polarization, and very few people actually have been given permission, now more so than before, okay, to work with this energy because it's so powerful. So when you're looking at it in its negative polarity, okay, now remember, the dark forces have understood completely how the energy works. So the Ankh unlocks creative life force. It unlocks the different layers of call it the firmament, if you will, okay? It unlocks the different layers of your spirit type thing when you are ready. Okay, so on the opposite as well, let me tell you, it is the most powerful tool of destruction as well. So I can see why people think it's evil, because that's what they've been indoctrinated with. But it is, in the olden days, they used it to usurp power out of people, to steal their blood, to steal their energy. Everything it gives life to, they have used it to steal life as well. And yes, absolutely, it symbolizes the union of the divine masculine and the divine feminine. It's just the horizon with the roots and the sun rising at the top, symbolizing a new beginning. So it has so many different beautiful meanings and symbolisms, and it's very powerful. So I would highly recommend that you guys start doing a little bit of research on it, because it's very beautiful.
And even though like the Holy Grail started off with Magdalene carrying the bloodline from Atlantis, she's just telling me that she wants every person to understand in this battle that we're in Gog and Magog, that you are the Holy Grail. We are the Holy Grails, that we are more powerful than they've let us know. And that's why they're trying to derail everything. You are special. You carry that. So yeah, you are. And that Kundalini, that's the Christ consciousness. Yeah, it's and I feel like I say this every show, you guys, darkness can't create anything. Only the light can. So darkness takes what the light has created and inverts it. Okay. So yeah, thank you for that. That was beautiful. So you guys, you're I mean, come on, everything they've done over these past 2 years, obviously you're someone special if they're trying this hard to entrap you, right? So yeah. All right. So shall we take this story to Camelot? Shall we turn this ship over to Camelot?
Let's go with that cute little curveball, shall we?
Let's go. Yeah, a couple of them. And when I was researching, I was like, what the hell does King Arthur have to do with the Merovingians? Maggie, come on, gotta help me out here. And so I started to research more into King Arthur. We all know the story of King Arthur. We all know that we were told, so this is what we were told by our controllers, by our masters, that King Arthur got popular in the 12th century over a book called The History of the Kings of Britain that was written by Geoffrey of Monmouth. Now, what a lot of people don't know, you can find this, but what they don't outwardly tell you is that Geoffrey of Monmouth was copying a book that was written in the 5th century in Tartaria. Same time as America. Yep. So King Arthur was not then, if that's being said, so if King Arthur ruled geographically where they tell us where England is, which we're going to get into that, then at that point when King Arthur was ruling, he was not English, because the Anglo-Saxons had not invaded England yet. He was Britain. So that's the Celtics. Who are the Celtics? The Riverdance people, the Druids, which we know in a lot of these manuscripts we're finding that the Druids were highly connected to Joshua and Magdalene. Joshua and Magdalene spent a lot of time with the Druids. Okay, well, the Druids, we would also call them perhaps to be a little bit Nordic, looking a little bit like Morné and me. All right, so where did the Nordics come from? All right. The Cassiopean back channel just released information. Now, we can't say the name of this country on YouTube because of our controllers. The unicorn country, the country that starts with a U.
Laugh every time you say that.
By the Black Sea. That's all the rage right now. Everyone's got that flag hanging. It's all the rage right now. The unicorn country that's at war and apparently already surrendered to the land of the czars. Okay, that country.
No, are you serious? It has?
But we heard that. Yeah, that was, of course, they've got a lot of other side flappy things going on here in America to try to distract us. But that, yes, there was a showdown between the president and the head of the military. Washington, D.C. was pushing them to fight back, but the head of the military in the unicorn country apparently said, no chance. I'm not sacrificing my men. And so the head of the military apparently surrendered while the president did not. So the controllers are basically fucked now. So LOL, that's cute. So thank you to the head of the military of the unicorn country. But so apparently we've talked about this. There's a portal in the capital of the unicorn country. And we know that the controllers have used this particular country as like their main headquarters. It's where their bank accounts are, all this kind of stuff going on. Well, the Draco brought in humanoid off-worlders to Earth during the time of Atlantis from a star system called Kentuckia. Not Kentucky. A lot of people are like, oh, Kentucky. No, it's Kentuckia. It was a star system that had gotten also invaded by these nasty, nasty pieces of work. And so they hauled all of these humanoids to Atlantis, brought them through the portal in the unicorn country to incorporate them into what they thought was going to become their slave planet. This was before the fall of Atlantis, which was the apocalypse. All right. The Kentuckians, again, are Nordic looking. Blonde-haired, blue-eyed. A lot of Rh negatives are blonde-haired, blue-eyed. I know both Shanti and Stephanie are Rh negative, and they are dark-haired, dark-eyed. You can have people, that's just common, right? It's just, I have like every side effect of being Rh negative. I could be the poster child for what an Rh negative looks like. But all right, so we're seeing again this bloodline that's coming from another star system being brought into the Atlantean world. We know that the original paintings of Mary Magdalene showed her with blonde hair and blue-eyed, some reddish blonde hair and blue-eyed. We know from our research that her father was Greek, very powerful ruler of Egypt coming from the Ptolemy line, which is the Tesla line, were Greek, but they ruled Egypt. Her mother was Kentuckian. Magdalene was blonde hair, blue-eyed. She was not Middle Easterner. Okay, so how is King Arthur depicted? Well, he's depicted a lot like the Merovingians, blonde hair, blue-eyed, Celtic. And we know there are many, many, many people, researchers out there that are saying King Arthur is a direct descendant of Magdalene and Joshua. However, the controllers tell us that he never lived. He's a fantasy. It's like fantasy football, right? We're going to create a whole fantasy of empires that never existed. Well, this is where things get super interesting. Super interesting. Because the French people, oh, we lost Shanti.
Yeah, she froze blue and popped out.
well, they don't want us talking about this stuff, guys. They're like, oh no.
Anytime we talk about this kind of stuff, somebody gets booted off.
Yeah, they don't like us talking about this stuff, guys. That's okay. We're gonna keep pushing forward.
I just had load shedding, guys. That's what happened. Yeah.
The controllers don't want us talking about this. All right. Everyone knows, if you're a history buff like I am, you know that the English people and the French people have never gotten along. There's always been wars going back and forth between France and England. Now, what cracks me up is the royal families are the same effing family. They all intermarry each other. It's the same family. The Bourbons, the Tudors, the Stuarts, they're all the same. They're all kissing cousins. Yeah. Okay. So, but with that being said, in the 13th century, allegedly, there was this other story that was added to King Arthur called the Lancelot Grail. And this was written in France. Why the hell would French people who are constantly at war with the English people add to the story of King Arthur if he's English? Again, let's cue the guy from Tartaria. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Like, it's not adding up. Like, what's going on here? Okay. So in the Lancelot Grail, this is where we learn about, again, the legend of King Arthur by looking at the love between Lancelot and Guinevere and the quest for the Holy Grail, the bloodline of Atlantis. We also see the Knights of the Round Table. We talked about last week the 12 tribes of Israel coming through Jacob are the controllers, the bloodlines of the Lucies. And it became 13 because Joseph had his sons that were also anointed as part of that bloodline. We talked about that last week through Moses, right? Yeah. Those are not the 12 tribes of light. Those are the 12 families.
Wow.
Really, yeah. But again, the darkness can't create anything. It can only invert what the light creates. The Knights of the Round Table, what Stephanie and I have we've come to understand is that they are galactic, Palladians,
wow.
Lyrans. The Knights of the Round Table were representation of each of these galactic tribes coming together to help humanity, because we're all a hodgepodge of these galactic tribes. And we know that the powers that be have tried to dirty this, like the Nazis tried to dirty it and make it, invert it and make it bad. But the Knights of the Round Table were the 12 representatives of the 12 tribes coming together, like what do we call that now? The Galactic Federation.
Yeah.
Also, too, Brice, it's something to do, I think, also with the 144,000, because those are all the tribes. And I think all of us have incarnated and come back into this lifetime to help humanity, just like we did then.
Yeah. Oh, I think we were all there. I mean, the Cassiopeians say that, like, all of us on this screen and probably everybody watching was there for the fall of Atlantis, the apocalypse. We're back now. We're back. We had a karmic round ticket. We had no choice. We had a round ticket to come back to Earth for this time as well. We had no choice. That was an agreement, right? So, all right. Yeah, we had a few of those. Like I said, I laugh and say my GPS got a little messed up. I was supposed to go to Venus, but here I am. All right. So the sword and the stone. Stephanie and I talked about this, and we kind of got that both that the story of Arthur kind of happened already, but it's happening again. What does swords represent in tarot?
Words and thoughts.
It's the mental.
Sword in the stone. What do we know has been manipulated the most? Our history. Yeah. The retailing. I believe the retailing of our history is us collectively pulling that sword out of the stone to crush the matrix, to end it. All right. So let's go now. Let's leave that there. You guys just do your own research. I know we could be here for 5 hours today talking about this stuff, but just take what I'm saying and do your own research. Let's hop over to America. This is where shit gets real interesting.
Because it wasn't already interesting enough.
I know.
Oh, really? Yeah, I'm sitting on the edge of my seat, I'll have you know.
Truth is what is it Mark Twain said? The truth is
much better than what we were told. It's like, we want to learn now because it's like, oh, wow, that makes so much sense. You're piecing these puzzle pieces together, and it's just like one puzzle piece after the other, and it just blows your mind, and you're like, okay, now this really makes sense. It's getting really interesting.
So, Morné, I think I sent you a map of America in the way that it really was in ancient times.
That one, okay, yeah, it is.
Yeah, the big one of the whole of the United States. And when I say America, I mean, even though this is just generically showing generically showing the United States, I'm talking about the whole of the American continent. So Trump used to say America first. And we thought that meant, oh, just because he's our ruler, he's going to put us first. I think he was telling us, this was more than a political statement. Mm-hmm. Many, many, many people, not just Stephanie and me, but there are many researchers out there now saying, you guys, all this biblical stuff happened in America, not
mirror it all.
Mirror everything. So where I live in Georgia, all the way through to Texas was Egypt. Israel was the Grand Canyon. Stephanie's in Babylon.
Yeah, help me.
And Canada was Gaul. So we're going to get to that. So Morné, do you have the other maps? I'll show you guys. So if the Gulf is the Red Sea, or excuse me, the Gulf is the sea, what we would see as the oh, my mind's going blank, the sea above Egypt, Mediterranean, that's it, Mediterranean Sea, then that would be the Gulf of Mexico, where the Panhandle is now, close to the Gulf of Mexico. So here we have the Mississippi River. This is what people believe is the actual Nile. And look what's right on the Nile. Memphis, Tennessee. Now they tell us that we got the names of these cities from stealing them or reusing them from other cities, but I'm not so sure anymore. Memphis is in Egypt as well. Okay, the Delta and New Orleans. Why do you think New Orleans is such a magical place? Why do you think there's so much mysticism in New Orleans? That was the delta of the Nile, which means the Library of Alexandria would have been around there too. All right, do you have the Georgia? There's one, it says Cairo, Georgia, or as they say down here in the deep South, Cairo, Georgia. All right, here it is. So there's a Rome, Georgia. There's an Athens, Georgia. And then down south, I think there's one more picture down south that shows Cairo, Georgia. Anyway, there's,
I don't have that one.
Okay, so if you guys just look on a map, there is a Cairo, Georgia down by the Georgia-Florida line. Now, we know, did I send you the picture of the Sphinx in Memphis?
Oh, yes.
1912?
Just popping it up now.
And this, a viewer sent this to me. A viewer sent this to me.
Wow.
Guys. Now, we've talked about this briefly last week with our Tartaria. When we look at like the Chicago World's Fair, for example, at the end of the late 1800s, there was a lot of Roman architecture, Greek architecture at the Chicago's World Fair. And they fooled the people into thinking they had put it up for the World's Fair. And then once the World's Fair was over, they took it all down. That stuff was already there. That was not, and you can find, if you research deep into Abraham Lincoln, you can find Abraham Lincoln speaking about this stuff. They knew, Lincoln knew that where Stephanie and I live was the cradle of life. They were just telling us. So we talked about this last week on the Tartaria episode with incubator babies, that they just put us, so let's talk about America again, because that's where there's been a lot of strife. They put us all on these continents and then created stories and indoctrinated these stories to keep us divided.
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
And somebody asked about the Grand Canyon, because we know there's an Isis temple in the Grand Canyon. Stephanie's spoken about that. They're like, well, that's Israel. Why is there an Isis temple? Because all of these faiths intercross together, guys.
There's a Shiva temple there too.
Exactly. There's a Shiva temple there too. Now, Morné, we were off screen. We're like, what does that mean? What is what we call the Nile now? I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what that.
Maybe that's the Mississippi.
Know. That might be the real Mississippi. I don't know.
Wow.
Hudson and Tom Sawyer, they were actually that's what we still have to figure out, because we don't have all the answers. We're just scratching the surface. We all got the same history books, and the controllers got a different set of history books. I know in Georgia there are a bunch of pyramids that are hidden from us in Georgia. We have all the granite mountains. We have Arabia Mountain, Stone Mountain. This is where this is where the Georgia Guidestones are, guys. The controllers know this stuff. So let's talk about Magdalene again and the Merovingian. So this makes me believe that they were ruling from Atlanta. We now know Atlanta was probably the capital of Atlantis, one of the capitals, and also is in the area of what was Egypt. There's a lot of mysticism here in Atlanta. There's a whole fountain. That's a whole different story for a different day. So if Magdalene and Joshua were living in the area that I live in Egypt, and there has been a lot of archaeological evidence. We find Egyptian money here all the time with Alexander Helios's face on it in the American continent. Like, there is archaeological evidence to back this, that the controllers don't want to see. That's why we can't as people just go and explore the Grand Canyon. They won't let us. We can't get into parts of the Grand Canyon because it would expose too much. So if they had to leave Egypt, we know they tell us that Magdalene that's one thing the Merovingians always taught, that Joshua and Magdalene lived a long life together, that he was never crucified. Okay, that's one thing the Merovingians did teach people. Okay, so if something is starting to happen, if the coming of the fall of the apocalypse started to happen, and they had to get out of Egypt, which let's just pretend, even if you don't believe it, let's just pretend that's Georgia for now, based on this map. They then made it their way up to Canada, what we call Canada, which was Gaul. Now they tell us that a part of France settled Canada. That's why there's French Canadians. No, my friends, if you're a French Canadian, you were the original French person. Why is French such a heavy language in Canada? Why? Come on.
Original France.
The original France. I mean, let's like make one of those t-shirts for him again. Like what they tell us, shit's not adding up. Shit's not adding up. All right, so let's look at, so they would have to make their way up through the East Coast, through Appalachia, which Appalachia is one of the oldest mountain chains in the world, where I live at the base of Appalachia. It's one of the oldest mountain chains in the world. There's a lot of very interesting stories coming from Appalachia. All right, so they had to go all the way up Appalachia into what we now call Ottawa, which Ottawa is talked about in the Tartaria documentary, because there's a lot of crazy looking buildings in Ottawa, which were there because just like the Capitol building in DC, they didn't have instruments, electrical tools to build these buildings. So did the settlers build these buildings in Canada and America? Yeah, right. Like, no, they did not build these buildings. They were there. They were part of Tartaria. So let's look at the rotunda. Morné, did I send you the picture of the Capitol building of DC? Yes. So Capitol building of DC, actually, I think he speaks about this. This is a Tartarian building, guys. Listen, if we believe the story that they've given us, that these settlers, these peasant settlers who were just coming to find a new world, how the hell did they build this with no power tools? They didn't. It was here. The Capitol building was already here. Now, in the rotunda, there is a sculpture. You see it up above. You see the Aztec calendar. There is a woman kneeling by what looks like a tomb. This woman looks to be Anglican, white. She has a crown on. She doesn't match the other people in the picture. Many, 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 many researchers, even in mainstream research, believe this is Magdalene. Magdalene kneeling beside a tomb. Now, why is she kneeling beside a tomb if we know Yahshua was never crucified? Well, she's kneeling beside the tomb because they have to tell you the truth somewhere in their story. Again, how many days was Yahshua, or Jesus as he's called in their story, in the tomb before he rose?
3 days.
How many trimesters in a woman's pregnancy?
3.
And what happens when a child is born? It breaks through. You have I know this is kind of gross, but your water breaks, right? A seal.
There's a little, like, not to get graphic, but yeah, there's a plug. There's a tomb door almost, kind of.
And it pops.
Yeah.
And then the baby comes out into a new life. The resurrection of the Ankh.
Yeah.
So she's kneeling before her own womb that carried forth the Atlantean bloodline back into Tartaria. Now, we believe that her body, that she was actually, when she passed away, that was in what we call Ottawa today, Ottawa, Canada. One of my subscribers sent me a picture. I don't have it on me. It's on my Twitter, of a tomb that's recognized in Ottawa as the tomb of the unknown soldier. Now, they say they got this body in France after World War II, but we know if we're looking at the geography of Atlantis, or of all this happening in America, then she was never in what we call France today. So there is a possibility that tomb is the tomb of Magdalene, that they're just not telling you it's Magdalene. And on the sides of it are the emblems that look almost like the Ankh. Okay. Whoa. Yeah, I'll have to send it. So the person who sent it to me this morning. I'll send it to you, Stephanie, as well. So that could very, very well be her resting place, and they're just not telling you well, they are telling you through some symbolism, but they're not telling you at the same time. I know now people will say, but there's a whole cave in the south of France and her skull. Come on, guys. Come on. The controllers, you really think those controllers are going to let you see Magdalene's skull?
No way.
If you think that they're going to let you see the real Magdalene skull, I don't know what planet you're living on or what you have missed during this Great Awakening, because there is no way in hell. My thought is the cave in the south of France that they've told you was Magdalene's cave, it's probably mirrored. So there's probably something kind of sinister there, and they're harnessing the energy for that. That's what my opinion. I don't know for sure, but all I know is that these people are never going to let you see the real thing. Because if you saw the real thing, the spell would be broken. So
absolutely. Wow. How interesting.
And that's where
loving this, just rediscovering all of these things. It just feels so right, you know, when we're looking at the Startaria stuff, especially, you know, it's just like these buildings. I mean, come on, people, let's have a look at that. That in itself should make you question just that.
Yeah.
Just the buildings.
I mean, logically, let's think about it. Okay, if we're following the storyline that they gave us, which now I know my ancestors didn't want to get on a boat and come here. They were put here after the mud flood. Would you, you're this poor peasant. You're trying to escape Europe for religious freedoms. You probably don't have that great of an education. You can probably just read a little bit, maybe sign your name. And all of a sudden you come to this new world where the weather is different. There's tribes everywhere. There's constantly warring going on. There's malaria. There's sickness. You have the capacity to build that? Yeah, right. Like, it's not adding up, guys. Like, that was already here. That was Tartarian. And they just...
Why can't we make buildings like that nowadays?
And they didn't even have electrical... They didn't have tools. They had no electrical tools.
We have tools, yet we still can't make that kind of a building. So
exactly. We can make different stories depending on how high our crane's neck is.
Exactly. It just goes straight up. There's no beautiful architecture. There's no pillars. There's no carvings. There's nothing. And what is it made of? What, concrete and windows? So it's nothing fascinating, but yet you go back all the way back then and you have these gorgeous buildings that you can't duplicate even one of them because they're that intricate. It just makes you go, what? How? And I always did wonder. I just, I think our programming, we go, oh, well, we're told this. We're not going to look into this. It's time we start really digging in and doing the research.
As I literally just pulled the Two of Swords, the girl being blindfolded.
Yeah.
So we've been blindfolded.
Did you know that in the Salvador Dali, have you seen the Salvador Dali tarot deck? It's absolutely beautiful. Wow. And there's some of the figures painted with 24 karat gold and really, really beautiful. And in the Salvador Dali deck, now again, I mean, some people might think this is, what do you call it, blasphemous, but I don't see it like that. It's art. He has painted Jesus with a blindfold and the Two of Swords. So it really is about going like, when the blindfold is there and going within the choices we have to make, the roads we have to take, the discernment we have to use. It really is about that whole deep inner introspection, and really making choices and taking paths that are based on true spiritual wisdom. That's the way I see it.
Yeah. Do your own research, follow your gut. I mean, when we were talking about this, Stephanie, when I said the Knights of the Round Table were galactic, you were like, oh my God, I just got chill bumps. Like, your gut always knows truth. When you hear truth, you know truth. You know it's true. And it doesn't, and I'm telling you guys, like, even though this is totally crumbling any type of religious propaganda that's been put out there, it's so much better. And at the end of the day, it doesn't even actually matter where they lived, really, at the end of the day. It's just us uncovering the truth of what happened. Yeah. The real crux of this is that there's no person that's more worthy than anyone else. We're all given the ability to have that Christ consciousness. We're all loved by Source. All of us.
Absolutely.
No one's going to hell. No one.
The truth sets us free, yet the journey towards the truth is what makes us wise. So I think it's just everybody, I know everybody's not agreeing with everything on our shows right now, and there's a lot of like this and that, and no, it can't be. It's like we are just sharing what we discover. And we need to discern that for ourselves. And Shanti said it beautifully, like, and it's exactly that. And that is the journey right now. It's up to us to set ourselves free from this lies and spells and stuff like that. So people should just realize.
All we're doing is giving you guidelines. We're saying to you, this is what's out there. This is what's been hidden from us. We're curious as to why that's happening. So maybe you'll be curious too. Here's some information, go and research. If you don't agree with that, then move along. But I have to say, I'm having a few chuckles at some of these comments here. See, nowadays I can look at the comments.
Us from presenting. Why go? Why is there? I didn't carve Mary Magdalene in the rotunda at the Capitol Hill. I didn't carve her there. Who did?
Exactly.
Go research it.
Exactly.
Go research.
The more I get hammered with like negativity and everything, it just kind of almost at this point my driving force to even look into it more, because it's like, if we're having that much anger on this matter, obviously I'm over some sort of target, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, okay, now I need to look deeper. And I know I can talk for you, Brice, with that, because we've talked about that, but I will continue to present what my findings are. And I'm open to people not resonating with what I find or what I divinate, and I'm perfectly okay with being wrong. But at the same time, because of my background in the church, and it's like that, oh my gosh, I was so lied to. And now it's like, it's this hunt for the truth. I'm like craving the truth now, because something always felt so sinister and wrong about what I was being taught. And now that I'm learning all these different things that we, Brice and I present on our shows, it's much better than what I was told, what I was taught. And it's actually fun to learn now. It's fun to learn about God. It's fun to learn about Yahshua and Magdalene. It's fun to learn about history now, where all of that just never. Go ahead, Brice. What does the Tartarian guy say? Yeah, right.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
Like you have to stop and think. And here's the other thing too. If we've been lied to about everything from A to Z, what makes us not think that the church hasn't lied to us the most out of all of it? Because that's the head of the snake. Obviously. So that's where like that cognitive dissonance, it really like that's the hard one to break. I feel like that the church matrix, because I think that's its own little matrix, is the hardest to break out of just the general matrix. It's almost got like a stronghold on people. And then it's like they have such an attachment, like you said, Brice, to their narrative, this Bible, right? that I'm not saying it's a demonic attachment, but almost like acts like one, and it like changes their tone, and you see like this rage that comes out of people that you've never seen before, and it's like, oh my gosh, wow. I never got to that point, but it's.
Yeah, you said it very well there, Stephanie. It's like the Bible is all about compassion, or Jesus' teachings, let's say that rather. And then a lot of Christians, once you start going out of the narrative, they become so like vicious. And it's really true. It's like the colors comes out. And which is amazing that, we've been doing the show for so long. It's like all of us know that they've inverted everything on this planet. Yet the Bible is not. The Bible is right. Yeah, I don't understand that. That I really understand. But I do understand that God was always in control and is always in control, no matter what the devil thinks he's doing. God is always have his like plans for us all in between the mess. So that's why the Bible has been used for good as well, in the sense that, when I read the Bible, I didn't see all the nasty stuff. I only saw the good messages, and that's what I took with me in my life. So I think it's all
the
about
devil makes for bad and evil, God makes for good.
Yeah, exactly.
And what we're saying to you guys too, if you are a hardcore Bible believing Christian, we're showing you the book of Revelation right now. The church wants you to believe that we're at the apocalypse. Why do they want you to believe that? Because there's a tribulation after the apocalypse. There's some scary stuff coming that lowers your vibration, that puts you on a negative timeline. But what we're showing you is that the apocalypse already happened. It happened with the fall of Atlantis. Tartaria was the 1,000 years of peace. We're now at Gog and Magog. That's incredible news. We're at Gog and Magog. We're going to ascend.
Yeah,
like
it's time to fight me.
Yes. So we're showing you the most important thing that you understand is that we've already done that. We've been there, done that. We got the t-shirt. We got the round trip ticket back to Earth because that apocalypse already effing happened. Okay. The 1,000 years of peace already happened. It was called Tartaria. It was ruled by the Merovingians, the line of Christ. The Bible says that Christ will come back and rule for 1,000 years. It was their descendants, the Merovingians. It's all there, guys. And now we transition through the mud floods, the late 1700s, the mud floods, they wiped us out. That was the agreement. That was the agreement. And the Lucy's came back, and of course they moved. You don't think they know how to teleport? You don't think they know how to move shit around? They did that to confuse us, because they're throwing everything at us right now to try to get us on the negative line. We're too smart for that. This is Gog and Magog, and we're in our some of your best days haven't even happened yet.
Absolutely, it's coming. Yay! Ladies and gents, this has been amazing. And as always, we are having such fun and time is flying. So thank you so much, Brice. This has really been an amazing conversation, and I fully agree with you. In terms of so many things, just open up, let's see what's out there. You don't have to believe everything that everyone is telling you. You need to, practice your discernment. But, this is the time of unfolding. This is the time of awakening. This is the time of rediscovering things that have been hidden. A lot of us don't like to always believe it, but, we know that we don't want to harp on that. But I know that conversations like this are always a little bit sensitive for people, but that's a good thing, right? Because it's also part of just live and let live, and allow others to worship in the way that they want to. As I always say, Jesus doesn't need Jesus police, really. You live your life, do what you need to do. Let those who are wanting and willing to discover and open up new chapters, ideas, information that comes their way, that's all right. And I just appreciate each and every one of you who join us on this journey. And I mean, we've just got amazing guests. I mean, Brice and Stephanie, it's wonderful to have had you guys on here together again. And as always, Morné, thank you so much. And it's such a pleasure. You're wonderful guest. Thank you so much. So guys and girls, thank you so much for watching us again and enjoying these controversial, cutting-edge topics where we trailblaze back into the past, creating the modern day present moment by using some very important information and tools. So take care of yourselves. God bless you all. And we shall see you very, 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 very soon. Cheers, everybody. I think we're on with Tom Althouse tomorrow night, aren't we, Morné?
Yes,
we have Tom Althouse tomorrow night. So, tune in for us tomorrow with Tom as well. Take it easy.